Imagine the idea of getting money deposited into your account every month, no questions asked for the rest of your life, regardless of whether you have a job or not. The same amount deposited every month until the day you die. Now, for the sake of argument, let's say this amount is $3,000 a month and you get to keep all of it. This means that the amount is not taxed. You can use this money for whatever you like. Fund a new business, pay for groceries, make a down payment for a house or a car, maybe learn a new skill or go on a vacation, whatever your heart desires. The goal here, the primary goal here, is to reduce the financial burden of being alive. What I am talking about in today's weekly digression is the concept of universal basic income, or UBI as it's more popularly known. Now, this is a concept that has been around in one form or another since ancient Egypt, but has never been truly and properly implemented. Not because the resources did not exist, but because maintaining power requires a separation of classes and an artificial scarcity of resources. A lot of people also have this misconception that if we were to implement UBI, then no one would do any work and the world would grind to a halt. This is basically propaganda spread by the ruling class to ensure that we are totally reliant on them to survive while they rake in the big profits and maintain their position in society. The position being one of control and domination. Not implementing UBI also ensures the continued existence of minimum wage jobs, which are essential for the bottom line of practically every large corporation. Let's do a little mental exercise here. If you had $3,000 deposited into your account every month, would you want to work a job that pays minimum wage? You now have the luxury to upskill yourself and apply for jobs that have better pay, hours, and benefits. In fact, I believe that we would see a large majority of people become freelancers or start their own one-person agencies, providing services to other businesses and individuals. Think of it as a be your own boss type of thing. UBI would also ensure that people can afford good health and dental insurance without a major impact on their finances. This would mean an overall reduction in the morbidity and mortality rate in cities and countries. Countries like mine, which have serious mental health and drug epidemics, would see people getting access to high-quality healthcare and the treatment they need to get better. This would translate to a reduction in the burden on our healthcare system and an overall reduction in the crime rate. Let's take homelessness as the next example. Now, at the very basic level, people are homeless because they cannot afford a place to live. UBI practically guarantees that this basic necessity is now accessible to everyone. Now, obviously, we're not talking about people living in mansions here, but we are guaranteeing that no one is sleeping in the streets. This would cause a further reduction in crime and addiction rates. Then there's the impact that UBI would have on our children. For starters, we would see an increase in the number of children being born. The ability to afford children and provide for them is causing a global reduction in birth rates. Countries like Japan, Canada, and many in Europe are moving towards negative birth rates. The implementation of UBI is an incentive for people not just to have children, but to guarantee that children will have fair access to everything they need to become the best version of themselves. Now, there are two questions that everyone tends to ask when the idea of UBI is presented. The first one is a very obvious one, and which is, where will the money come from? It's not very complicated to fund UBI, and it should be clear that this money would come from heavily taxing corporations, high net worth individuals, and reducing our military budgets. These three alone would ensure that UBI is available to everyone in the country. And on top of that, UBI itself is a self-sustaining system. Think about it this way. When you get that $3,000, you are going to put it back into the system by paying for things you need or subscribing to necessities like universal healthcare. So that $3,000 is now going back into the system, but if you multiply that $3,000 by everyone in the country, you are essentially ensuring that every service and resource you need is funded. This is a basic overview of how the system is funded. There is more to it, but at the end of the day, you're not going to just get the money and put it under your mattress. It's going back into the economy one way or another. A small UBI tax could be implemented on any purchase or service to ensure that UBI continues to stay funded. It's really not that complex to implement UBI. The problem is that the ruling class has made it sound complex because not implementing it is in their favor, in their benefit. It ensures that there is a big differentiation in what they have access to and what everyone else has access to. And above all else, it ensures that they can maintain control over you. Do not overthink this, and obviously do not buy into the propaganda. It really is not that complex. Our governments have spent billions on nonsense that could have been easily used to fund UBI. And this would have drastically improved the quality of living for all of us. But, at the end of the day, one person's suffering is another person's bottom line. The second question that everyone asks is, what if we implement UBI and people just sit at home and do nothing? Now, I have two responses for this. One of them you're not going to like. It's better that people sit at home and do nothing rather than be homeless, addicted to drugs, or resort to crime to survive. If they're taking the money and spending it on services and necessities, then the system continues to function. It's not like they're going to get the money and just stare at it. They have to do something with it. They have to spend it. The second response that I have is that it's really none of your business what someone else does with the UBI they get, because no one tells you what you do with the money you earn. So you should be more concerned with the impact that UBI is going to have on you and your way of life. You have to be more concerned with what it can unlock for you and what it can improve in your life. What I can tell you is that yes, there will be people who will just take the money and exist day to day until the day they die, like people who come from generational wealth and just sit around and wait for their monthly payouts from their trust funds. And then there will be people who will take this money and do amazing things with it, start the next revolutionary company, or invent a cure for cancer in their garage. The sky is now the limit. You have removed the constraints that stop people from exploring and inventing and innovating. Propaganda from the highest echelons of our society has us convinced that we need to have a strong separation of classes and that within our society, are leeches out to destroy our way of life. None of it is true, and all of it is designed to ensure that we're constantly bickering amongst ourselves and giving into the desires and demands of these highest echelons of society. The implementation of UBI will ensure the elimination of human suffering, and it guarantees that everyone, regardless of their background, is on the same basic starting level. You eliminate poverty, you ensure people have access to healthcare, treatment, and addiction. You reduce the burden on our services that we have in society, like healthcare, transportation. It ensures that children do not go hungry at school and have access to quality education. It raises the standard of living globally. Why would you not want that? Why would you fight against a system that improves the lives of everybody? I want to hear your thoughts on how UBI, if implemented, would impact you personally. Don't concern yourself with what someone else is going to do with the money or where it's going to come from. Focus on just you. Please leave your responses in the comments below. I will see you all next week in another digression. Until then, take care and have a wonderful day. Goodbye.